All right, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Eric Carl. I'm the Director of Fine Technology at Montgomery County Community College. I'm joined by my colleague Kim Springfield, who is one of our instructional designer technologists here at the college. And what we're going to be talking about today is our story, our return to campus, our hybrid and flex story, basically the experience that we went through pretty much the majority of 2021, getting our classrooms ready to bring everybody back on the campus. I'll be talking more about the sort of technical side of things. Kim's going to get more into the pedagogical side of things, depending on what side of the coin you're on there. One of us is most likely going to bore you to death. It's probably going to be me. But that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Kim to kick things off here.
Great. Thank you so much, Eric. Hello, everyone. I just wanted to start with some definitions that we had at the college. These definitions were from last fall, 2021. And at the time during the pandemic, we had a setup where students were registering to come to class. Either it was like A, B, it was one class, but there was an A and a B part of it. And if you registered for as an A student, you would come to class on Monday. If you registered as a B student, you'd come to class on Wednesday. And you were only allowed to come to campus on the day that you registered for. Your other day was automatically online. So within that context for hybrid, a student, let's just go with a class that had 20 students, half the class would come in on Monday. If a student registered as an A student on Monday, they would show up on Monday and were expected to show up. If a student registered as an A student for a flex class, they had the option to decide if they wanted to show up on that Monday in person or be online that day. But on Wednesday, they had to be online regardless. Right now, we're back to more of a normal situation where hybrid is hybrid. You have hybrid with asynchronous or hybrid with a synchronous component, and flex is flex, where you can show up if you want or go online and you don't have to let your instructor know. Today, this is kind of an outline of what we're going to talk about. We're going to go into a little bit about our research we did for equipment, how we came about creating the room, our pilot, the refinement process, our plan for trainings, scaling that plan, and then eventually offering these trainings to our faculty to prepare them for their return to campus.
All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the design phase of things. Now, I think it's worth noting here right off the top that I'm in one of our final flex rooms, like our final design. So what you're seeing, what you're hearing, this is the experience that our students would have if one of our was teaching in the classroom. So when we first started out, we're talking about what do we want this room to be able to do and what capabilities do we want it to have. One of the main things for me was that we'd have a dual camera function. So a camera facing both the instructor, but also the option to turn that camera around and show the students if we need to. So I just demonstrated there quick. I can switch to both cameras. I also thought it would be cool to, obviously we wanted to make sure that audio was a priority, make sure improve our audio capture for the classroom. I think you can easily make the argument that the audio piece is much more important than a video piece. If your students are just watching you but can't hear you or can't understand what you're saying, it's really kind of a fruitless effort there. And then the other thing is we use Extron as our control system across the college. It's in all of our classrooms already, so I really wanted to come up with a design that integrated with that Extron control panel. So when the instructors walked in, that was something they were already familiar with. So that when they walked in, it wasn't intimidating. They could just walk in and we could automate as much of the setup as possible. So those were kind of our needs. And oh, can you go back for a second? Yeah. The other thing I wanted, one of the ones that I thought would be cool would be the ability to show both cameras at once. So I can demo that real quick. So I hit that button there. So now I can actually show both cameras at the same time. The instructor kind of prioritized in the larger view, but also the students. This just kind of takes the pressure off the instructor to have to worry about cameras, like, oh, which camera am I on? Am I on, what's it showing? This is an option for them if they just want to put that up, be showing everything all at the same time. Next slide, please. So our initial design, what we started with was, it was important that we find like some wide angle cameras that we could, again, just kind of set the view and I didn't want to put that burden on the instructor to have to be panning cameras back and forth. So I wanted something with a wide view. We initially went with these Axis cameras for their wide angle capabilities. The Clear One microphones were actually recommended to me by our colleagues at Bucks. We tried those out. They worked very well for us. So we went ahead and put that into our initial design. And then I purchased the Geffen multi-view graphics processor to try to achieve that dual camera view that I just demonstrated. In order to do that, we also had to purchase an HDMI to USB converter to make that conversion, get the image in. Next slide. Now, some of the challenges that all of that presented was just tons of new cabling. So we do all of our own installs at the college. We don't really use integrators for anything, so it's me and one other guy. And so the challenge of retrofitting 40 classrooms is what we ended up doing last year. Was really kind of daunting with all the extra additional cabling that was going to. In addition to the extra configuration and programming that was going to be required to get each of those devices set up. We also ultimately found out that we didn't have enough existing power outlets in the podium. We had to even go back and add additional power to that initial design. So that, again, that was just kind of a starting point. We got our initial build up to create a proof of concept, and then we kind of turned it over to Kim and her colleagues over on the instructional design team, start working with our faculty to actually put the room into the process.
Yeah, so once we had the tech figured out for the room, we went ahead and outfitted one of our classrooms to become our first hybrid flex room, and then we had a pilot. This pilot was a 4-week pilot with a Blackboard space, so we could provide resources to our faculty to assist them during this. They joined us over 4 weeks on Monday and Tuesday, so they had one in-person day, one day online, and we had a total of 10 faculty, and you can see we had a variety of disciplines that joined us, and that was very important to us because while there's a baseline that everyone would be using the rooms in the same fashion and a certain way, there was definitely differences that we learned about during this pilot, nursing specifically, radiography, accounting, our math faculty. Some of their unique individual needs started to come out in this pilot, and we had to begin to make sure we were planning for resources for those specific groups as well in regards to our flex rooms. So the 4 weeks were broken up into this fashion. Week 1, we did an introduction to hybrid flex learning and talked a little bit about course design within this modality. We considered this a student experience week for them. The instructional designers were the ones presenting the information. They were there as students experiencing the room, not only as an in-person student because they came in person with us one day, but then their other day they were online, so they were able to be a student online and get that experience so they could understand what their students would be experiencing. Week 2, we went over some classroom management techniques with them, and they also did a presentation. So they had 15 minutes to present on a topic of their choice. It didn't necessarily have to be related to their discipline, where they were up in front of the room teaching us about their topic and being able to use the technology. So because some of them were in person and some were online, they had their colleagues online that were acting as their students and were instructed to raise their hand, use the chat to give them that experience of what they may experience when they actually were in the classroom that fall. Week 3, we did some discussion about flex and hybrid activities and assessments and how you might need to switch up what you've done in the classroom or had just done synchronously online, and how would that look in a hybrid or flex classroom. We also offered additional trainings that week, so they could choose to use Zoom or Collaborate. So we offered some additional trainings on those tools, and we also re-offered trainings on how to use the smartboard because they realized very quickly that use of the smartboard was going to be the best experience not only for them, but specifically their online students. And then week 4 was kind of just final reflections of everything we had just gone through. And they were invited back to present again. So they re-presented that 15-minute presentation they did in week 2. And the goal and idea of that was they got a lot of feedback, not only from us, the instructional designers, but their colleagues and peers, not only the peers in person, but specifically the online colleagues, to share with them, could they hear them? Did they get out of the camera view? Did they remember to share their screen? Little things like that. So they had an opportunity to re-present and again make changes based on the feedback they got from everyone in week 2. As a result of this pilot, during the whole pilot, right away within week 1 and week 2, we were asking them for feedback on the room, their experience. So this whole time they were giving us feedback, and we were passing this feedback along to Eric's team, and they were beginning to review that feedback and then decide what changes we needed to make to accommodate that feedback into the room.
So after like Kim said, after that initial phase where we were working with the faculty to kind of put it to use and see what worked, what didn't, we did get some feedback from them that we were able to kind of go back and make some refinements to the room. Again, we were focusing on just, we built out one room initially, and this whole process pretty much started in like January, February of last year. We started designing and purchasing things, and then they started their pilot program. We were really refining this through like the end of May before we really pulled the trigger on ordering 40 sets of equipment for all of the classrooms. So one of the things that kind of came to the top there was really the need for a second dedicated display. So you can see that in my room over here, this second display above the board. In Zoom in particular, that comes in very handy. Zoom has a dual display option, which allows us to keep the smartboard 100% dedicated to instruction. They don't have to manage any student cameras or chat or microphone or Zoom controls. They don't have to worry about any of that on their main screen. They could just put their PowerPoint up or their Excel sheet or Word document, whatever they wanted to present. They can focus 100% on the smartboard, and all of the secondaries, so all your cameras, all of your chat and controls would all appear on that second display, which really just kind of, opened up the real estate on the board. Now, every platform is different. Like I said, that works ideal in Zoom. We're in Bluetooth, does not have that second display option that I'm aware of, or some of the other things. We really kind of built out our rooms around the idea of Zoom. So that was one big change we made. The other was the access cameras just weren't working for us. They kind of utilized a fisheye view to get that wide angle. So we did some more research and came across a very economical webcam, this Clear One microphone, under $100, and it gets 120-degree wide angle view. So that's actually what you're looking at right now. So you can kind of see just how much of the classroom that's capturing. I'm getting both my whiteboards here all the way over to the podium in that one shot. So again, that idea of the instructor not having to worry about moving the cameras. The microphones worked out great. We really just had to make some refinements to the placement in the room and really just some volume setting adjustments on the mixer that's inside the podium. Nothing that the faculty ever has to work. Next one. So again, those new cameras offered much easier install and a clearer image. They were also much easier, like I said, much easier for us to install instead of the multiple cables that came with the first Axis cameras. This is just a single USB camera running back to the podium, or USB cable running back to the podium. So it made our installation a whole lot easier. We also introduced this inner Genie device, which is in the top right corner there. and that replaced the Geffen device I mentioned earlier. This actually, this is a really cool device. It takes two USB cameras, so I could have multiple USB cameras in the room, and it allows me to do all of that camera switching that I demonstrated for you earlier. And I can do it without going into Zoom or BlueJeans or ever even touching the computer software. It's all done from my external control panel. Just one button. It's literally labeled, I'll show you a close-up a little bit later, but it's literally labeled student camera or instructor camera or dual camera. They can just hit that and it automatically routes the correct camera to whatever program you're using, Zoom, Teams, BlueJeans, Blackboard Collaborate. It's going to work in any online platform. It also eliminated the need for the HDMI to USB converter. And then in the bottom right corner there, you see a photo of just the forward-facing camera that we hung for the classroom. So again, very kind of simple, just web camera up in the ceiling. When you walk in, you don't even notice the camera and the microphone. It was very important for us to also keep the room from being too intimidating when the instructor walked in. When they came back in the fall, we didn't want to walk in and see tons of new technology and just be completely overwhelmed trying to figure out, thinking, how am I going to learn how to use all this new stuff? Really, the biggest thing when they walk in is just that extra display. Everything at the podium is exactly the same as pre-pandemic, what they were used to beforehand. Next slide, please. So here's just some more photos of that sort of the final design. So there you see the dual display, which you can also see on my live camera now. There's our external control panel. So again, this didn't change. We had this in the room beforehand. They go in, they still press the on button, and it turns on the whole room and gets everything set up for them. The camera and the ceiling, there's the microphone. Very inconspicuous when you walk in, unless you're even looking for it, you almost don't even know. Next slide. And then there in the top right corner, you can see the close-up of those buttons. So again, I can kind of demonstrate those for you. So we have the teacher camera, student camera, and the dual camera. And I'm doing that all without ever even touching my PC. I can just switch by pressing a button there. The camera, microphone, and speaker settings, we also, again, tried to simplify as much as possible for our instructors when they were coming. I didn't want them to go and have to, I think we've all at some point now, opened up Zoom and you had the wrong microphone selected or the wrong, maybe you had a headset connected, you didn't have the headset selected as your speaker. So you're in there trying to figure out which audio device you want selected. I tried to simplify that for everybody. When they go in, there's only one choice for them. I disabled everything that wasn't the proper device. So and I renamed the devices that are here. So it literally says ceiling speakers, and the microphone says Zoom microphone. So there's really no doubt as to which one they should select. Plus, it's the only option, so it defaults to that naturally. Next slide, please. Of course, as I mentioned, the next challenge was then scaling the rooms after that initial design. That being said, it was really important for us to nail the design on that first one before, again, purchasing equipment. We actually ended up doing, I said 40, we did 39 rooms total initially. So really before buying equipment for all those rooms and then physically installing all those rooms, we wanted to make sure that we had the design down pat for us. Other challenges, obviously, we did the majority of the installs over the summer last year, so just juggling vacation schedules within our team, while doing our other daily jobs of supporting events, meetings, help desk requests, and just kind of making sure that we, again, weren't making any major changes to anything along the way. There were little software changes that we had to do, and if we were 10 rooms in, we had to go back and redo all 10 of those, backwards. So we wanted to make sure that we were finding, making our mistakes early so that we didn't carry them throughout the project. Next slide. I'm going to turn this over to Kim now.
Perfect. Thank you, Eric. So while Eric's team was building out the other 38 rooms, the instructional design team was busy trying to figure out how can we take what we did in the pilot and now expand it to the rest of the faculty coming back. The pilot was in April of 2021, so now we were going into the summer semester where a lot of our faculty do leave. You have vacations. Things were at the time starting to open back up. People were going out to do more things, so we had to get really creative in how we were going to be able to make this training available to our faculty. So what we came up with is a couple different levels of trainings. We had our first training, which is a light experience, which is a high-level overview. We created an immersion experience, which was a more in-depth experience, refreshers, which were discipline specific, and in-motion sessions, which were really just check-in feedback office hours that we made available. Among all the trainings for the Flex Room, we were offering trainings for Zoom and Smartboard trainings again as well for those faculty that wanted refreshers on that technology. So we had 20 offerings of our light experience, and the light experience came up because, we have a lot of different faculty that have a lot of different tech comfort levels. So there's the faculty that just need to see it once and I'll get in there and I'll figure it out. Those that just did not have the time to come into an immersion experience, we still hopefully wanted them to at least jump into the light experience to get a brief overview and understanding of it. That way they could determine themselves how much more training or assistance they would need from our team. So the way this training worked is it was on campus or online, and it was a semi-structured 2-hour time block. And we encouraged at least one in-person attendance so they could actually see the room, even though we shared during our presentation, if they were online like you're seeing today, we had screenshots and images, but it's a little different when you're actually in the room. So part one, which is really hour one of the 2-hour time block, was an explanation and demonstration of the classroom technology, and then a brief discussion of classroom management techniques. Part two was more of a question and answer. There was a lot of questions. When the word got out about this offering in the fall, there was a lot of apprehension, and as Eric said, we worked to not change anything in the room, but the faculty did not know that at the time. So the feedback we were getting through, faculty we would talk with is just they were so nervous thinking that everything was changing. So this experience also came from that feedback that we just wanted to get something offered so they can at least jump in online and take a look and see that we really did not change the room as much as they possibly thought we had. So part two of the second hour of the 2-hour time block was question and answer. Those that were in person had the opportunity to come up at the end if they wanted to fool around with the equipment, ask specific questions. There was time at the end if they wanted to come up and actually engage with the technology. So we had 20 of those. We had 9 immersion experiences. This is the one we really wanted people to go to, but we also knew with schedules and timing, it wasn't going to be ideal for everyone. So this was offered on campus and online for consecutive days structured in 2-hour time blocks. So for example, it was maybe 1 week, a Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. They were on campus 2 of the days, so they were on campus either Monday, Wednesday, or they were the group that was on campus Tuesday, Thursday. And this ended up being a condensed version of our pilot. So Monday and Tuesday was the student experience. They had a chance to be in person while we were sharing information. And then the next day they were online, able to be a student. We shared more information. And then Wednesday and Thursday were the presentations. So the day they presented, they were in person. The other day they were online supporting their colleagues, giving them that same feedback as an online student. And we were able to offer 9 of those. Then we had refreshers. We had 44 appointments. People take us up on those. And it really kind of was one-on-one appointments. The idea was that if you went to the light experience or the immersion experience, those were happening May, June, July. Classes weren't starting until the very end of August. We wanted to have an opportunity for faculty to be able to re-engage with us, specifically one-on-one, and ask any questions they had specific to their course. We also got a lot of feedback that even though they came to the trainings, they just wanted to get into the room they were actually teaching in, because they would feel more comfortable to know that the technology they interacted with was the actual technology in the room they were assigned to teach that fall. So if it allowed, when these appointments were made, we we did everything in our best effort to get them booked in the room they would actually be teaching from so we could go through that equipment with them or answer whatever questions that they had. And the in-motion sessions, we had 16 of them. These actually occurred after the start of the fall semester in 2021. And it was really an opportunity for us to just be in a room that we had booked for them to come in. Maybe something didn't go right. They had questions. They were having trouble with engagement. They didn't know how to maybe structure an activity, an assignment, an exercise for their flex class for a unit they had coming up, all those kind of things, just an opportunity for them to reconnect with us, sort of like office hours. But we were also hoping that we could get some additional feedback about these rooms in case we needed to jump on any changes sooner than later. Overall, we had outreach to 145 people. We had 41% join us in our immersion, 28% took us up on our light, and 30% took us up on our refresher experiences. So I'm going to turn it back over to Eric. He's just going to talk about some of the challenges and the successes we had with everything we just shared with you.
Almost forgot to unmute myself. So some of the challenges, as Kim mentioned, there was initial fears from the faculty coming back on just the flex modality and how is this going to be different than what they had started getting used to teaching from. That was one of our challenges. Faculty that didn't engage in trainings. Obviously, we couldn't force them to come in and take the training. It was an optional training, but we strongly encouraged them to, and we really found that those that did participate obviously had a much easier time making that transition. It's not hard, but it's just one of those things that you want to come in and just get used to. Those couple little extra steps that you might to prepare yourself for a little bit different experience than they previously had. Another challenge, not being able to automate absolutely everything. And this is something we're still trying to work on a little bit. There are a couple user settings that are particular to each user signing in. So we have PCs in every classroom, but they still have to log into their account when they come in. And so there's some settings that I can't make for them, individually on their account. So that first time that they come into the classroom, there's just like in Zoom in particular, they have to enable that dual monitor mode so that it automatically, they have to do that one time at the beginning of the semester, and then all semester it'll hold that setting and continue throughout. So again, that was one of the things, like Kim mentioned, when they came in, if we could get them into the room that they were going to be teaching in for the semester, when they came in for that initial training, we could actually walk them through that, and then they were good to go for the rest of the year. Another thing, there is a PowerPoint setting so that when you have dual screens like this and you launch a PowerPoint, we need to dictate which screen the main presentation is going to. We want it to come up here, and so that's also going to your, being projected to your remote students as well. So there's just a little setting in PowerPoint that I had to make on a user basis. And then obviously, we talked about supporting multiple platforms. We do have faculty using both Zoom and Blackboard Collaborate for teaching. So again, two totally different platforms, so two different trainings depending on user preference. Again, we built the rooms for really aiming towards Zoom, but there's nothing stopping you from using the other platforms. You just don't really get the benefit of that second play in some of the other platforms. But we certainly, for the challenges that we experienced, we also had a lot of successes. As we mentioned, the faculty felt more confident after coming in and attending those trainings. That first day of class was much easier for them as opposed to the faculty that came back and hadn't gone through anything. We were running around a little bit more those first few weeks, helping those folks get set up. Another success was that the equipment did function as we had hoped. A lot of times, like in my role, when you're designing a classroom or a conference room or any sort of new build, it all looks good on paper, but then when you actually wire everything up, doesn't always go exactly as you had hoped. This was one of those, fortunately, where, in theory, the way that we planned it out, everything worked. We made some refinements, and fortunately, everything, worked the way that we had hoped. All of those once and and needs that I mentioned earlier in the presentation. Another success is that we found that these rooms have ultimately been able to be used beyond the classroom. We have meetings in here. Some of our board committee meetings take place right down the hall in one where half of our board shows up remotely and half of the board is here in person, and we're able to have that mixed use that we never could before. So just a lot of flexibility there. Also, trainings, meetings, conferencing of any sort. Nowadays, as Kim mentioned, initially it was, the classes had that mixed presence, like one day here, one day at home. But now you have everything. Students have transportation challenges. They might have childcare challenges. They might just not be feeling well that day. Previously, they might have had to just stay home and miss class altogether. Now, at least these rooms have the capability to connect with them at home, and they can still continue along with the classes. And then obviously, we got everything to a point where it is scalable. We were able to build out all 39 of those rooms last year successfully. I actually just got done. I just purchased equipment to build 10 more this summer, and we're having discussions about even doing possibly even more than that. So it is, it did prove to be a scalable solution that we could build, that we would be happy to share our parts list and our wiring diagrams and all that kind of stuff with anybody else who might be interested. Next slide. And so that brings us to the end of the presentation. So I think we have a couple minutes left. If anybody has any questions, I know I did see in the chat somebody had asked about sharing the screen, like certainly, and lecture capture. So certainly I can share my screen from here. Again, all the rooms have PCs built in, so they would launch their Zoom session here and then use it just like you're using Zoom anywhere else. You can share your screen, and everything on the main screen gets shared to the students at home for your data share. And then as far as the other bonus is, all this equipment is also compatible with our lecture capture system. We recently switched our lecture capture system. We're now using a product called Uja for our lecture capture solution. And so the camera, the microphone, the data capture all works seamlessly with Uja. So it's really kind of a dual use again. The technology, beyond just providing that hybrid flexibility, it can now also provide the lecture capture solution as well.
And we're also working with that with Uja to hopefully get a connection that if they recorded and use Zoom in these classrooms and then recorded their session, it would automatically just go up to Uja for them and be stored on that platform, and they can share it right out with their students. So again, trying to make everything as seamless as possible for the faculty so they can just go in, bring up their content, and start teaching, which is what they want to do, and not have to worry so much about the technology.
Does anybody else have any other questions? I mean, feel free to chat, or even, you can pop on your microphone or camera. If you have any additional questions about either side of things, the technical side or sort of the pilot phase of things, and Kim's side of things. We did submit this project for our college's Innovation of the Year submission, and we recently, just within the past 2 or 3 weeks, found out that we did win the Innovation of the Year award for this project. So it's something that our team is very proud of. It was definitely a lot of work, a lot of people involved. I think there ended up being 20 plus names on that submission form, between the IT team involved in building and designing everything, and all the faculty involved in giving the feedback there. So we've also opened up, engaged, one of our IT employees works with our students regularly to gather their feedback, on all things at the college, and we kind of leverage that to get, the student side and student feedback on things and things, anything that we might need to refine for further, for future builds.
And we're happy to share this presentation slide deck if you want. Our emails are attached to our names here, but we can put that in the chat if you would like. Feel free to email us, and we'd be happy to share this out as well.
All right, well, thank you, everybody. Like Kim said, we appreciate your time this afternoon, and if anybody has any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. We'd be glad to discuss, talk about our experience further with you. Have a great afternoon, a great weekend.